Well, as you can see here, these are the next two major parts of the 50-inch refit to go into silicone. Now, we've already molded these rear fins, and we've molded these parts, so we've got molds for those. So when I combine all these pieces here, the grill, the housing, and the base on both of these are going into silicone next. I really wanted to get these into silicone a couple of weeks ago, but long story short, I got hit with a couple of things all at once, and real life took precedence. At any rate, we'll see how this turns out in a week or two. I've stripped down all the parts that made up these two outer nacelle halves, sprayed both the lower sections and the interior cores with a couple of coats of 2X semi-gloss primer. Now I've got to let those parts dry for a couple of days. Then I'm going to sand on each and every one of them very lightly, do some minor cleanup, then shoot all the white parts that you see here with gloss, reassemble the parts, and start making molds of these two outer nacelle halves. All right, here you see the Polar Lights nacelle next to the 50-inch refit nacelle. It's a wee bit smaller. All right, now I've got to get on with sanding this and then taping it and shooting it with flat or gloss white. So check back with this a little later. I've sanded the outer part of these nacelle sections for about the last 2 hours with 600 grit sandpaper, trying to get rid of as much buildup and to smooth the parts out as much as possible. Now, as you can see, I've had to tape the grills back in. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to backfill both nacelle halves and glue them firmly to a base as I attach these parts before I make the mold. Now, I don't want to start backfilling with clay right now because I've got other things to get to. So this is going to have to wait. I'm going to have to take a break from this a little bit. I had to heat and reshape both of these pieces because they're so thin. When these were prototyped, they were prototyped to get done quick, fast, and then hurry. And here we are 6 years later trying to get this done. At any rate, I'm going to backfill these parts with clay, make sure they're exactly the right shape, glue them down, and get both outside nacelle halves ready for a mold. All right, we'll check back on this later or in another movie. Now, as you see here, when you go to paint the little tabs on each one of the nacelle domes, you've got to opaque it really well, but before you can do that, you've got to tape everything off. Seems like a lot of work for nothing, but you've got to get that nice and dark so that it doesn't let any light through, and then put on a lighter coat and then a lighter coat still to match the rest of the ship or the rest of the nacelles. But it pays off. When it all is said and done, the more work you put into it, the better it's going to look. All right, as you see here, I've got one of the original series nacelle domes just about done. I've opaqued the 3 little tips on the outer circumference and have went over with the proper color to match the rest of the nacelle. Got to pay attention to every little bitty detail. I'm going to go over this and the other one and do just a little bit more cleanup and make sure that they're perfectly opaque before I can install these and call it good. So there we are. Oops. Here we see a broken impulse engine off of the 50-inch refit. I had just repaired this when I was getting ready to make this video, and I dropped it and it shattered again like brittle old glass. I'm going to go ahead and try to glue this back together and get it ready for a mold. I cannot wait to get a mold of this because I don't want to ever have to do this again. I'm telling you, this stuff that I've been working on is now 6 years old and it is brittle, brittle, brittle. Anyway, let's see how this turns out. I tell you what, my heart fell down into my stomach when I dropped this. Let's see if I can't repair it. Okay, I've repaired it. Now, I've got to leave that set for a couple of days. I use nothing more than super glue gel right here. Okay, now I've got to let that dry for a couple of days. Then I'm going to have to go over very carefully with a fresh brand new X-Acto, recut all the little grid lines, scrape where the seam is, then lightly sand with 600 grit wet dry sandpaper, recut the grid lines, sand, etc. At least I saved the part. Yeah, it may look a little rough now, but I guarantee you when I'm done with it, it'll look like new. Whew. Boy, that's a load off my mind. Here we have the 1/140th scale rocket ship Luna from Destination Moon. A story originally written by Robert A. Heinlein. This is one of the preeminent, preeminent movies and science fiction books due to its, at the time, period accuracy. For everything that we knew, it was really accurate. Also, if you remember the movie, if you've seen it, that's one of the first time you see a crew in various different colors, mostly primary colors, red, green, blue, yellow, etc., way before Star Trek. Yet another thing that Gene Roddenberry borrowed from other movies and or television scripts, much like Forbidden Planet. At any rate, this is the Pegasus model. Pegasus and Mobius models are really doing some awesome stuff. They're making available a lot of the kits that used to only be available as garage kits for relatively high prices. I got this for about 20 bucks. It's a very simple model, 12 pieces, but it's a very well made model and all the parts fit very well together. I mean, it's all really precise. Excellent job, one of the best jobs I've seen of injection molding. At any rate, I recommend the ship. What you see is what you get. It's about 12 inches tall, not quite. And you've got a little lunar base. As you can see here with the lunar base, I painted it several different colors from several different angles. Black, dark gray, light gray, white. I also sprinkled some plaster on top to give it some surface detail as opposed to just negative detail. So if you look at the base, you can see it looks a lot like the moon's surface where meteorites and meteors have hit and sprayed regolith in various different directions. Anyway, so much for the kit review. I recommend it. Here's the upper primary hull of a 22-inch AMT kit. This is one of the original AMT kits. I've got about a half a dozen of these at least. I've got two in various stages of construction, and this is one of them. I've corrected the BC deck. I've assembled all the parts to make one primary hull, and I've masked everything off, opaqued it, and as you can see, I've drilled holes for fiber optics. So I'm gonna probably shoot this with a couple more coats of primer. This is a darker primer. I used flat black underneath this. I'm going to shoot a couple of coats of light gray at least, a couple of thick heavy coats. Let that set up for about 3 days, let it get that nice hard candy shell, and then go at it with some 400 and 600 grit sandpaper to smooth everything out, and probably shoot it one more time with primer and then hit it with some 600 grit wet and go for the final coat. This I've had sitting around for a long time. I just happened to pull it out because I'd been working on original series and refit stuff all week. So somebody asked me about this and I'm like, sure, I can do that, no problem. I already got one half built. Thank you very much. So there you go. Well, here's another look at the original series cutaway AMT kit. I've been using the sanding sponge to sand and smooth everything out to get a really good smooth paint job on this. I don't know if it was the humidity or the paint was getting old. The paint came out really thick when it came out of the nozzle, so I had to let it dry, but I went with it. I'm going to go ahead and just sand the stuff out of it and smooth it, shape it, and shoot it with another light coat from a brand new can and see how that comes out. So as you can see, this is starting to slowly come together. Though the parts that I bought from Don Matthews, this is the old DLM kit. I've had this for years. Not quite exactly the shape I would like. So I'm probably going to have to try to come up with another one a little more accurate. At any rate, I will show production on this again. In fact, I'll do a light test on this at some point soon. Here you can see some more work on the 1/120th scale bridge. The BC deck is out in the garage. I've been focusing on getting this 100%. I've got to mask a couple of places off and fill in a couple of little divots where the paint didn't quite get into the rapid prototyping material. I've also got to clean up the edges down here all the way around, do some more light sanding, recut the grid lines. It's just one of those tedious processes that's not done until it's done, and until it looks like it came out of the factory, it's not leaving here. And it's not going into silicone until it's 100%. So we will see this again. Here's the 1/120 bridge and BC deck of the Refit Enterprise, sitting on a piece of 80,000 styrene. The reason for the styrene is simple. Some of the areas on the lower portion of the bottom of the disc are getting threadbare from sanding and whatnot. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make a base plate to proper specifications to put underneath this to smooth everything out so it makes a smooth, even transition and looks studio accurate. Here's something I've been making for quite a while now. Custom clocks. It's really simple. You take the old clock, you pull it apart, you replace it with the proper mechanism, you paint it the color that you want, and you add the graphics you want for the clock face. Now I've made custom-made Coca-Cola clocks, custom Nuka-Cola clocks for the video game Fallout, and a myriad of clocks special made just for my customers, clients, and friends. Anyway, this is it all masked up with fresh gloss white paint. Let me pull the masking off and we'll see how it looks then. And presto changeo, you've got a beautiful cherry red clock with a white inner border. All I've got to do is touch up a couple of places, insert a new clock mechanism, reinstall the hands and the graphics and the crystal, and it's ready to go on the market. Booyah! I decided to go ahead and show this. This is a custom-made Coca-Cola clock that I made for my wife for Christmas one year, and she was really happy. She loved it. It was a special, one-of-a-kind Coca-Cola clock. She likes to collect Coke product things, and I thought this was a natural. How do you like it? And here we have the original series Romulan symbol. I made this up for my buddy Steve, and it's getting ready to ship out. I took some pictures of this, but the purple velour did not show up. So I'm sending this out to Steve, and I hope he likes it. I think it'll make a nice wall hanging or model base, whichever suits him best. At any rate, this is a last look at a finished Romulan bird of prey base. Here's something new I just came up with. The Vulcan Idic symbol as a model base or wall hanging, plaque, whatever you want to call it, however you want to use it. Now, I already included a gem. I've got a couple of different versions of the center gem to go with this model, or model base. And I'm gonna, at one point, probably cover everything in gold and chrome laminate. I just hadn't had a chance to get to that as yet, but I did want to go ahead and show it off for now. So, if you're interested in anything like this, please let me know. And here's the 1/24 scale Guardian of Forever. Yes, I just couldn't wait to do this. I'm going to offer this as a kit. I've already got a build-up, actually. Before I even got the kit finalized, I got contracted to do a build-up, so I will be showing progress on that very shortly. I'm going to have to resculpt all these figures into original series era looking figures, and I need to find a 1/24th, 1/25th scale female figure for Uhura, because I want to make sure that the diorama slash model looks exactly like a scene out of The City on the Edge of Forever. Now here's the StarCraft Romulan Bird of Prey. This is, I don't know, this is an older kit. It's 1/1000. I was already working on the 350th Romulan Bird of Prey, and I pulled this out. I heard that Polar Lights was going to be putting out a kit, and I figured, why should I buy another kit when I've got this one? So I'm going to go ahead and make some corrections to this kit, fill in all the holes, correct the hole's diameter and placement, and cast it in clear so I can have a nice little diorama to go with my 1/1000 original series Enterprise. Woohoo! Here's the lower primary hull of Lance's Refit Build. I've got a little bit of cleanup left to do. It took me about an hour to clean this up, get all the masking tape off, get all the masking adhesive off, and get it back into shape. I'm happy with it so far, but I'm going to send pictures to Lance. If Lance wants any changes, he needs to speak up, because this is getting ready to be stuffed full of electronics. And then, as soon as I'm happy with the light test from that, I'm going to start masking it all off again for the Aztec decal, or detail. At any rate, here we go. Lower primary hull, 1/350th Polar Lights round 2. The ship I love to hate. All right, there you go. Here's something new I'm trying on Lance's refit. I had 2 pieces of brass etch for his refit. Unfortunately, the cat got a hold of one and decided it'd make a really interesting toy to play with for a while, and it totally mangled the other one. So I'm going to use this piece of brass and some masking tape and try to come up with some PETG windows. I'm going to mask off the areas that I want to be the windows, opaque the PETG, shoot it with the proper color white and then the pearl, and see how it looks next to the ship, and see if I can't use this to French it in or flesh it into the surface of the body of the model, so that you'll never be able to tell that it was there, much like the brass etch. This is going to be interesting. And here are the turbo lifts for the Polar Lights 350 shuttle bay. This is for Lance's refit. I'm going to go ahead and shoot these with a darker gray, and then shoot them with the appropriate color and remove the mask. So I just wanted to show that to add to a future movie, or maybe in this movie. Now here's something I'm going to try today. I made up these little work bee decals some time ago, but I'm going to sit down right now and see how they look, see how they work out, because it looks like they're going to be a perfect fit. So there's the wee little work bee with its wee little decal number 1 on. Now I'll let that dry and trim up the flash and keep adding more to it. Boy, that looks sharp. Well, as you can see here, I've got a little more work done on the Martian Mars Attacks model. Got a couple of more layers of paint to add and add some detail. And this is where it's at right now. This is just a base coat on the face. I'm going to be going over that with a lot of detail and some washes, some different colors. And I'm going to be adding even a little more color to the base. And I'm going to seal all these different parts right here. And I'm going with a different color on the tanks. So that's where we're at now. Now I've been wanting to work with this foam for some time. I've seen people online work with this stuff and make some really interesting things with it. So I wanted to try to give it a shot. So I bought 2 orders of this foam, about $9 a piece. There were 4 of these sheets. Each one of these sets of foam for each would cover 17 square feet. So for 34 square feet, I spent about $20. Now I tried cutting the foam with 3 different cutting utensils. One of these carpet cutters, a box cutter, and a smaller carpet cutter style knife. Retractable disposable knife. Now I bought these for 29 cents at the same place where I bought the foam, Harbor Freight. After having tested all three of these pretty much give the same kind of good clean cut if you have a firm cutting base underneath. So I'm going to try to do a project with this knife and this foam, and we'll see what comes of that at a later date, maybe a little bit later in this movie.